Hey, Quant's got another update coming in. We did the not the moon phase, but the weekly strategy that was tested in the last video, or that I mentioned in the last video. So again, just as a refresher, so this one was intended to enter on Sunday early in the morning and then close out the strategy on midnight, essentially the beginning of Tuesday. And so this week it did play out as expected, or historically, I say as expected, but it just has a higher probability of winning. So the expectation is that it's more likely going to win. And so we did see that play out. We have the last trade had a net P&L of $978. Probably more importantly is that 80% win rate. The previous one, or a 0.8% win rate. The previous one was 3.4% win rate. And just to give a heads up on what the inputs were, this is with assuming a starting capital for this strategy was $10,000 with a 0.06% commission. So that does account for some fees that will be incurred. It doesn't include any slippage in this case. For Bitcoin, at that small of a position, I wouldn't expect a lot of slippage, but just so you're aware of the parameters that were put in to highlight that. Overall, as I showed before, this has a positive equity curve, and that last trade was a winner. So going back to Bitcoin, I wanted to show that one first, and now I'm going to switch back to the daily time frame and just go over some of the current support and resistance lines that we're seeing here. So I've drawn some manual support and resistance lines. It looks like we had that breakout. It would have been great if we would have just got a nice retest at the top of this support and then just turn or at this line and turn that current resistance into support. But that's not what happened. We fell all the way down there. We didn't get quite to this previous the previous support resistance line, and so right now it looks like it's challenging the current current resistance line. Maybe we'll get that flipped and then turn that into support, which would look bullish. But for right now, that's the current state. I did want to just mention a couple of other indicators here because we've talked about this in the past. We have the PA pivots indicator. So that one currently is not showing. I would expect this to show the price, the price action. So PA pivots, let's see what the current high is. Confirm PA pivot. Do we have that value here? Last high looks like 126. So yeah, it is highlighting up here. It's just a little hard to see. So I just wanted to make sure that was coming from that indicator. I guess another way I could have simply checked that was to just turn it on and off and see if that particular line disappeared, which it does. So this is going to catch much bigger trending moves. So it's not capturing this intermediate line that I drew. It does have the last high as the current resistance. We'll see how that plays out. If it breaks through, it looks like we might getting a little bit of a breakthrough here. And then the next one that I wanted to show, which I already have this turned on, was the GAN swings support. So currently it pretty much lines up with the PA pivots. These do not use the same logic, but this is a 2-bar swing that I have enabled here. And so if I show the GAN swing indicator, I've got the 2-bar swing enabled. If I turn on the 1-bar swing, so I'm just going to show the lines. I'm actually plotting that just so I can see the trend. Those are going to map pretty closely for the most recent price action just because things were mostly straight up over the last few days. But this 2-bar hasn't dropped down here. So anyways, those, just want to highlight those kind of basically align. And I've found that quite frequently the PA pivots and the 2-bar swing line up pretty closely with the pretty closely together. I don't know why I'm stuttering about that. So that's the support and resistance. The next thing that I want to highlight is actually a strategy that I would like to implement. One of my friends has implemented a cycle indicator. And so if you're familiar with Bob Louka, he's the one that popularized the 4-year cycle. At least he's the one that I'm aware of that popularized the 4-year cycle back in 2017, 2018. And that historically played out in the previous cycle and previous cycles. Obviously, it's up in the air whether it's going to play out this time. Obviously, you have like Raoul Powell talking about a 5-year cycle and a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon. My base case is the 4-year cycle is going to hold until proven otherwise. That doesn't mean I necessarily would exit my entire position at the end of the cycle, because I personally would just like to have some security of holding on to Bitcoin long term. But base case for me is 4-year cycle is going to play out until proven otherwise. So this indicator is intended to capture those individual cycles. And so since we do have a tool that allows us to test how a strategy might look using indicators like this, I wanted to plug it in. I did find some issues with this, and I talked to my friend about this. And actually, let me go ahead and swap over here. So this is Dirt Pup FC. So he's got that frosty beard from a cold morning bike ride. He's the one that implemented this indicator. So if you're interested in who built this, that's the individual who built this. You can give him a follow or go try out the script yourself. It's you can just type in cycle indicator and you'll see it by Dirt Pup there. And so in any case, what I did was I went ahead and I plugged this into the strategy tester that we have, right? So with the skeleton key strategy tester, I've plugged this in so that we're capturing if the cycle is active, which is meaning the cycle started or potentially has ended. Ideally, I wanted to use that, but I found that there's some issues with using strictly that value alone. And I've talked to my friend about this, so I might try to work with him and see if we can get this nailed down a little bit. But in any case, just using that alone doesn't work. So I do have this does work fine for the start of the cycle. And then I'm using the cycle complete and failed cycle as exit endpoints there. And I did notice you will see like this type of logic obviously isn't going to be very valid, but there's quite a few instances where this works as expected. And so, like I said, I might work with my friend and see if I can get this buttoned up to where it'll give valid signals and we're not getting these kind of churn signals here. But ultimately, this is what the equity curve currently looks like. It's not something that I would trade out of the gate, but overall, you're not losing all of your money on day one. So this is something that looks like could be positive, and potentially after I or my friend or together we work out how to get this stuff straightened out, this might end up being more positive. So something to look forward to on that one. That's something I'll be showcasing later. And then just because this is my primary strategy for doing basic analysis, it was kind of interesting. This happens quite a lot, right? This is just an 8 EMA that's here. We got that touch on the 8 EMA, and then we got a bounce off of that. If you're playing more shorter term, that potentially could have been an entry point to get a short-term play. I'm not playing that. I tend to use these when I'm entering on macro time frames. So if I'm looking for cycle bottoms, I would tend to use these kind of things to average in or average out. But right now, I will just be looking at these potentially in the future as average out signals to capture some profit if it looks like the 4-year cycle is playing out, which, as I mentioned before, is my base case. So last thing I'll mention is I did do a video I think it was actually the last video that I had posted. I did do a video on this guy right here. So this is the Sui Play device. So if you want to see some gameplay of that, there's a previous video where I'm playing some videos there, some video game there, just to kind of demonstrate how the device works. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work very well with a lot of Steam games. Like Destiny 2 was a popular game that I would have really liked to play on this device, and that doesn't seem to work. Shadow of the Tomb Raider doesn't seem to work either. That's not one that I play a lot, but I've played it a little bit, and I know it's very intensive on using graphics, and so even though setting the graphics way low, it still doesn't play. I was hoping that one would play, but however, one of the popular games in the crypto ecosystem is Off the Grid, and so that one I actually was able to play. So I'll probably do another video here in the future where I'm playing Off the Grid. I did get some NFTs as part of the Superverse ecosystem in a wallet, and those NFTs have just been sitting there. I haven't done anything with them, even so it might be interesting to try. I think it might be interesting to see if I can get those NFTs into the game and then actually utilize the game, since that was the intended purpose. And so I might demonstrate some of that if I actually get that into the game. If not, I'll just probably make some comments about it while I'm playing Off the Grid. So that will be it for today. Peace, Quants. Oh, peace, Quants. But I did want to mention one thing here. So at the end of my videos, this is just like anybody who's just done any videos, I'd be very interested in your comments or your ideas about how you end your videos in an editing session. Obviously, I'm just doing this by myself. And so I've been using like the photo editor that's just built into Windows, where I'll trim off the last 2 seconds, because I have this ending where I'll say peace, Quants, and then I look down to the right because I have a big monitor, and that's where I have my video recording software playing, and I have to go click the button. So I do know there's hotkeys. Unfortunately, the hotkeys don't seem to work or won't work unless I have that focus on that window. And so obviously I don't generally have focus on that window because I'm trying to showcase some information on TradingView or maybe the game device that I'm using. And so I feel like I have this kind of annoying thing that I probably won't do it this time. I'm just going to leave it in because it's such a pain to try and trim off the last 2 seconds. But I would be interested if anybody has any experience with that, if they do anything about that, or they just like let it go. I know obviously some bigger YouTube channels are going to have an editing team, and they're probably going to polish it all up, but I'm not doing that right now, right? I'm just putting out some videos, trying to get more comfortable talking on camera and presenting the information in a way that's hopefully concise, and I'm not stuttering and saying too much. And so anyways, if anybody has any tips on that, please leave a comment, because I would love to know how you address that. And peace out, Quants.